playing this documentary. I'm like, there's nothing playing about this. I can trust you. I can tell you this. If you were in a study situation where you know that you have some sense of business, I'm not saying something like crypto or, but you think about real businesses that are product or service that is provided to people or other businesses over the long term. A good, high-quality company over the long term will do well. So they don't go to zero. The ones that you really lose that go to zero, those tend to be very, very speculative. That is not what I'm recommending, and I'm certainly not recommending it now. Because if you're a company that doesn't have the balance sheet to last through this period, you could go away.
Right.
But I'm not worried about that with some of the big companies that are out there. We're in some of the smaller cap stocks that we have invested in Ariel because we know what kind of businesses they are and what kind of sustainability they have. But I will tell you one thing, which is your point about anxiety. And this is something that I've taught and underscored in many situations for many years now. Do not make big financial decisions in times of great emotional stress. You will make a bad decision. I think with particularly women, we make our most important decisions in times of great emotional stress, often death or divorce of a spouse. And that is when we do things that we shouldn't do. So you have to sort of calm yourself down. Like big decisions in times of great emotional stress generally lead to bad outcomes. So at least the one thing you got to do is, if you have to make the decision, try to get the stress level down a little bit before you make it, so you can make it with some clarity.
That's what I meant. You're talking about outcomes, and you're absolutely right. You don't want to buy stocks that you think are going to plummet and go through the floor at any time. You don't want to lose money.
I hate losing money.
I'm allergic to it.
In the business I'm in, sometimes you do lose to win long term, but I don't like it.
Any business that shakes you up. I'm talking about in between times from a therapeutic perspective. You have to have an attitude about it. I have to have the kind of attitude that should this go, I can sustain myself. And the reason it's important in this crowd to establish is that we are often top faced to our own error.
That's my mother and the Eastern.
Exactly. Okay. So your God is going to fix your glory to God. Yeah. So step out on faith and take baby steps when it comes to your ability to tolerate the turbulence of the market. I can't figure out. We are the world's strongest GDP. We are excelling in many areas, or we were. I don't know if we still are. I might have to speak on the latest numbers. Yet we have terrible inflation. We have a looming recession. That's enough to shake the market by itself. And then you add the trade war to it. I don't know which animal will shoot, the lion, the tiger, or the bear. What do you attribute to being the biggest factor in the huge fluctuation? Is it coming from the trade war? Is it coming from the inflation and the threat of recession? Is it coming from leadership decisions?
They're all interrelated. So I think the tariff conversation put a high on all of this.
Okay.
So the tariff, starting with the tariffs, we are going to put a tariff on any product that is anyone who buys or sells American products. We're going to put tariffs on the products that they sell to America. A blanket, no matter what the country, no matter who they are, there is going to be this number. It didn't exist like that. And even if we've had trade imbalances in this country, which we have, there's no question about it, we've actually still been the most thriving, vibrant, most successful in the world. And we are the largest economy in the world per capita. China is actually technically larger, but they have a lot more people, so their per capita wealth is much lower than ours, much lower. So we're the largest economy in the world per capita. We put the tariffs on the whole world, and the whole world went kind of crazy because it was going to affect their economies. Think German car makers that sell cars to America. Think think an Apple. Okay, just think of all the things that get made and are brought here. There are certain things, which is the problem, that we just don't make. And so now we're putting tariffs on things we don't make when reshoring them to America is not necessarily the easiest solution because we may not be able to do it as efficiently, as cheaply. So what does that do? Cause inflation. Because we're going to pay more. Or the country that we put up the tariff on is going to pass it through to us because they're trying to maintain their profits. So now we have inflation as part of the conversation, which we've been trying to wrap around for the last couple of years. That inflation was born out of all the stimulus, all the money we had to print to support the economy during COVID, all those checks people got that helped sustain them and that PPP was, all of that we put into the economy that keep us all standing. But when you print money, you get inflation. That's just the way it works. That's 101 economics. So things ended up costing more. They were starting to come down. Everybody's complaining about things like eggs and the like. We're getting that down. But when you put the tariffs on, countries start to say, well, we'll charge more. Or if we make it in America, it's going to cost one last. So you've got that. You've got the prospect of inflation. Then companies start getting scared. They're like, well, maybe I shouldn't invest and spend, or maybe I should lay people off. Or consumers say, I don't think I should take that vacation. I'm not going to the summit because it looks like it might be challenging. That's getting recession talk. So those three things are happening at once. And now people are saying, maybe we're already in a recession, we just don't know it, because this is all happening in real time. It's a trifecta of not great. I just want to be honest with you. But it doesn't mean it can't work out. Because we've already started to see some of these step back from the edge with the 90-day pause. Not helped by the China tit for tat. I'll tell you, they seem to be dug in on both sides, and that's a little discouraging, which is what the market is reacting to now. And the market continues to fear that if the tit for tat with China keeps going and the world leaders stay as concerned as they are, and the absolute conversation stays the way it is, you just birth a recession. The fact I'm doing this because everyone just gets really scared, stops spending, the growth of the country slows while inflation goes up, which is this economic concept that I promised I would stop, called stagflation. The worst. Your economy is slowing down while prices are going up. And that is something that getting out of stagflation is very challenging. I hope I don't challenge
a lot. A very heavy thought for a group of leaders who are not always taught to think globally. We come from a generation of leadership that emphasizes that we think about our community. Okay? But when it comes to finances, it's a global thought.
the world is global. Our products are global. Everything that we consume, there are pieces of it that come from other places. The global community got interlocked a long time ago. The problem is trying to break that apart. I think that's very challenging. Trying to go back to what it was is very, very challenging.
It's very challenging.
I'm not saying that as being anti-American products being created, anti-labor, anti-anything, but I'm saying to just recognize the situation that the world is in. We are interdependent.
Yes. Yes, and like never before. And I think no matter what kind of leader you are listening at us today, it is conviction to think globally. When you think about everything right down to a post, they're posting something that they're reading inside out. That their opinion that's coming back at you may not be a reflection of who you are or where you came from. Even if they used a picture that looks like you, that doesn't mean that picture is authentic. We are in the final, I don't know if it's the final, but it may be the final when I see Wild Wild West.
Yes.
Our technology has exceeded our ability to our laws have not caught up with where we are. Neither have our defenses matched the possibilities of the turmoil that we might go through. Everything you buy now has got some kind of IP address connected to it, right down to your refrigerator and your dryer. So sometimes I come home, I think the whole house is lit like I'm gonna cover the whole house with a mattress and that's much we are losing. And we're coming up in a society where we've got to think differently about how we market products, how we do business, how we communicate with people. We can't just approach things from a black and white issue and be effective in a global world that runs on green, that isn't green anymore. Like when the song out there, they told me we don't take cash, but really. Okay, so we're starting to learn in the midst of the changing of cash, the changing of the way we do business, the changing of the way we thought. You're saying big stuff to us because you're talking about China and Japan, and you're talking about global markets, and we're talking about South Central LA.
But, not but, and. I can give you a lot of examples of small businesses that have been lit up by the opportunities of their products in other places.
Right. There you go.
And we see it with influencers, we see it with all sorts of things. So those borders have gone down for us, and those barriers have gone down for us.
Yes.
And we have been able to benefit from that. And that can be from the mundane to the most dangerous. I mean, everything from hair care products to food. Right. And it's just one of these things that I think we can't miss the point that we can benefit too.
Right.
You know, if you do something great today, you can actually find out about it.
Right.
We're not in a time of covered wagons and news moving slowly by.
Right.
You can actually get a viral thing to happen instantly and create a great phenomenon.
So this is what I want you to take away from this. If you are being rejected, it doesn't necessarily mean that your product is bad. It may be that you haven't found your audience.
Yeah.
So let's widen the search for the audience. The challenge in widening the search for the audience that I find is that the old rules as it relates to media, whether social or physical media, has become more challenging because it's become increasingly fragmented, increasingly diverse. The algorithms are giving you the truth in the flavor you like. Okay? And now you're in a situation whereas you have to advertise on channel 3, channel 8, and channel 13. Now I'm dating myself when I go there. Now you got people don't even have that. They've got cable, they don't have cable, they do this, they do that, they do this. And satellite radio, you got satellite radio, you gotta move into so many different ways that we don't, as small business leaders and church spiritual leaders, we don't always think that our next convert may be from Israel, that our next convert may be from Afghanistan, that our next convert. I get comments from people in languages that read. So I have to get the translation button to see whether I ought to be mad or not. So as we think about the world more globally, how does that affect the products you create, the language that you speak, and the colloquialisms that you use tend to be a reflection of where you came from. And I think all of us, even if we only speak English, have to be bilingual. Because the church has its own language. Okay? Business, the hair products has its own language. AI has its own language. But if you want into the global market, you have to be bilingual enough to have a conversation on a multiplicity of languages to get in the game. And how does that start? It starts with reading things that you don't understand, looking up things you have to do, talking to people where you're drowning at the table. You might drown, she's drowning, and I mean underwater, big bubbles. However, and don't be afraid to walk into the room like a fool and leave like a fool.
So I thought that was a brilliant thing to say, especially for someone running a company. We call it 3 trillion dollars in value. So he's running a 3T saying, I want to be a know-it-all, I want to be a learn-it-all. So one is this perspective of learning. The other, which I think is really important, is to understand there are niches to markets where you can master a niche and become extremely successful. The greatest Black entrepreneurs of all time, that's what they did. That's what John Johnson did with Ebony. That's what George Johnson did with Johnson Products. We can go down the list of they first went to their community. So while you're also thinking about Israel, don't forget about the next door neighbor. I sometimes think we do that. The other thing that I say to people, which I think is super important, why is your product or service better or different? If you are me too, it's not going to be great. You got to tell me why it's going to be better than whatever is out there, or you've done something with your spin on, or you've created a different service, or something that is making people's lives better in some way. So John Johnson took Life magazine and made Ebony because we weren't in Life. So a lot of customers came and said, well, I want to see people who look like me, and created something off of something, but different, that no one else had the vision to do. John Rogers, who started Ariel Investments as the first minority-owned mutual fund company in America, he was 24 years old and said, I'm going to start a mutual fund company. Like, no Black person did that. But he said, I'm going to do it in a very specific way by investing in a very specific kind of company. And all they're going to think I'm a gunslinger, and I'm going to have a turtle as a logo. I'm going to, like, literally up Seattle Park, what they think I'm going to be versus what I'm trying to do, what I deliver. That was different. Even the asset he was investing in was different. So there may be thousands of investment firms, but then he did it differently. So I always tell people when they come and tell me about their products, I'll tell you the rule of thumb I have at Ariel. So I say, if you show me from our marketing team the marketing materials, and if I can put my name over it and drop in the name of any investment firm in the nation, and it still makes sense, it's not Ariel. Instead, I want you to show me those marketing materials, and if I put the name of an investment firm in there that is not us, I want someone to say, why does Fidelity have their materials? Because they know who we are and what we stand for, and that would make sense that they would have these materials that are, borrowing something that is Ariel. I'm using that as an example. That's not an actual case, but that's the way thinking. So whatever the product or services that you have, can someone just drop their name into it, and it's so fine? Or is it, nope, that is Miss Shirley's product, and her logo, and her language, and her brand and reputation on it, and if L'Oreal tried to do it, it would not make sense.
So we then have to think about what is about us, and then make sure that that story is conveyed consistently through a medium of communication that is forward to the people. You can't be saying one thing on IG and something different on Facebook, and your website is saying something different. There's too many versions of us because we haven't thought through, and I want to see if you agree with this, we haven't thought through our story, what is unique about us, and what did we come into this world to do. I think those thoughts are the thoughts that require you to sit up on your tree and maybe draw up some tear up some things until you come down to some deliverable promises that then become recognizable to people. But they can't be recognizable to people if they're not recognizable to you. And a lot of us are trying to be branded by some outside company to be something that's not authentically who we are. And there we are trying to memorize something that knows we ought to be because they think it might be. And then we haven't tested the market.
I was going to say, feedback is very important.
Yeah.
No matter what I do, I always go to people and I say, shred my idea. Tell me how dumb I am, naive, I didn't think this through. Melody, you've got to be kidding. If you're eye rolling in front of my face. So tell me how bad it is. Now, a lot of times people are very reticent. I really want to know. Help me to go into the wilderness and fail.
Right.
And if you have experience, tell me. But a lot of people don't want to do that. They really don't.
You get a out there.
I mean, they wanted you to tell them how great they are, and it might be great. But if you say, but these three things I would think about, they get an attitude right away. If you want to be great, you take the feedback and you work around it. And I can tell you, my team will tell you, I will call the most successful people in the country and say, here's my idea. Can I send you the data? Can I pitch you? And then can you critique me? To this day, I'm still doing it. Tell me everything I got to do. Write notes in the market and tell me where are your questions. Because if I can stress test this idea with you and you're big time, then maybe I can actually break through and make this work.
So if you can,
and sometimes it's a neighbor or a friend. I mean, just mine is, I write a client letter every quarter to all of our clients about how we've done for the quarter. And I have expert readers read it, and the readers are at all levels of sophistication. My assistant always reads, I have a couple of friends read, I've senior people read, I co-CEO read, because I want someone who is a teacher, bus driver, someone who works at Sephora to understand what I write, but I also want a CFO or a CEO to understand what I write, and I want both to think, well, that's smart. As opposed to I wrote to some audience and I talked over or under something. So I use those people to critique my work. And when I was at GMA, I used to say to Diane Sawyer, on the way to the show, I would do my segment with the driver of the black car every single time. I would sit in the front seat and I would say, can I run through my segment? It'd be like 4 or 5 in the morning in New York, earlier in the West Coast. And they would say, okay, people I've never met. And I said, tell me anything you don't understand that I said. And I'd use the driver on the way to the show to critique my answers so that I could get better, so I could be clear with people that I was trying to talk to.
it also suggests, just like how broad your net is. If your net reaches from the Uber driver to the Fortune 100 company C-suite person, and you have both of them, how do you go about widening? We're not all you. How do we go about widening that beyond the parameters which most preachers talk to preachers, doctors talk to doctors, talk to lawyers? We get stuck in a bubble that we self-create. How did you begin, or where did you learn to break out that bubble so that you would have respect for the Uber driver and access to the corporate leader? I pay a lot of attention to both sides too. And particularly, I keep a handful of people who only have 10 minutes to talk. Because when they get
Short answers.
yeah.
He knows I'm back in 3 words.
Yes, when people don't have a lot of time to talk, that means number one, they're busy doing things, they're productive, they're fruitful, but their thoughts are going to be on such a high level that even if you're not ready for it, people who have too much time for you can be dangerous and slip into things that are really not wise and not well thought out. Yet, just because a person is pushing them off doesn't mean that they don't know what kind of detergent ought to be used in the building. And you come on, and we have to have respect for both sides. You have to be a hard person. You have to come up in Chicago, raised by a single mother, and start a conversation with the driver, and you could be the lady sitting up in the stilettos, riding in the back seat of the car. Well, it's too cold in here. Well, I found out, and I don't have, but I have enough money to know what money is. And what I found out is the people who are the most, I use a colloquialism, bougie, are the, yeah, I bet you haven't heard that for a minute. The people who are the most bougie are generally the most broke.
Yeah. My mother always said, I love this melody. Money talks and wealth whispers. It whispers. No one has to know. And you know, it's like you've never seen
double haters when you start speaking about every little thing, which is very easy to do when you came from nothing.
But that usually is a sign of some form of security. So I think most people get through that phase, and I think they end up. You see this with a lot of people. It's new.
Yeah.
Be patient with it.
Yeah.
It really, we're learning. We're all works in progress. Your point about, which I think is very important, is accessing people. I have some rules. So, first of all, I always want to be, if I call someone for anything, super crisp. So I'll practice what I want to say before the call, so I can get it down. As you how many times have you gone on a call with someone and you're like, what do they want? You're not getting to the point. The email is so long. I literally give it to my office. I'm like, what do they want? My office will tell you, like, I cannot read this email. I do not know what they want. Most people, when you really want to, like, get right to it, crisp.
Right.
The second thing is, I have a rule, if I've never met you, I don't get to ask you for something. I can only ask you for advice. And advice, I have found, people love to get it. Love. It's like, how would you do this? How would you do that? And I do that just to get them invested in the idea of what I'm working on and me. And generally, once they sort of wheels start turning, and then you come back and I did these three things in a crisp email, not paragraph. Then when you ask for time again, it's like, can I follow up on one sentence? Like, the time you establish some kind of relationship, when you ask for something, you get some credibility behind you, versus going in not.
Right.
You've never met them.
That's why I waited several years to ask you about. Well, my point is, don't waste your favors.
Yes.
Don't waste your favors. And don't let people talk you into spending your favor with somebody for their benefit. Because it will constitute your favor at your expense. And then when you really need the person, you don't have the capital with the person to send because you have wasted your favor. Are you hear what I'm talking about? Yeah, and you don't get her back again, not because she's not wise, not because she's not kind. This is respect. Respecting that she is busy, respecting that she flew in from somewhere and she's flying out of here in a minute and got someplace else to go and flying out somewhere else in a minute and meet George in the middle of the air and blow him a kiss. Understanding that is called respect. And if you don't respect them, why call them? So I think it had been maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years since we had talked. We were during COVID, we were talking, okay? So it's been since COVID. And she hadn't heard a word from me, maybe a thank you note or something, but nothing else.
I want to hear from you.
You want to hear from me?
I do. I learned that from someone.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I have this rule. I have these rules. And I was like, the people I will never ask anything in common, ever. I put their categories, and I put Michelle Obama in that category. And I love Michelle, like we all do. Love, admire her so much. They during COVID, she said, never call. And I said, I don't ever want to bother you. And she said, you. She's like, you don't get to make that decision for me. Maybe I want to talk to you. And that, it was so touching, but it was also less that I'm assuming a lot. And I am creating a one-sided relationship with someone that would like to engage with me and that I can learn from based upon me just deciding that I am in position to.
But, I would get back with this. Because you're not going to have all these people over at my house tomorrow. I'm looking for them, but you're not going to.
She invited me. That's right.
That's the point that people miss. Let the person, the busiest person, make the invitation.
Correct.
Because you want to make the invitation, you want to be in a position of strength. You don't want the the person in the position of strength that you are asking something, that you're knocking on the door every time I turn around and the police are picking you up in the car to carry you away, and I'm praying for you as they take you down the railway. You want to make sure that then eventually, as the relationship builds, you got to find something that you bring to the table.
That's what I said, two-way street.
Yeah.
You can't, there are givers and takers, and there are people who just take, and I don't have a lot of time for this. The ones who are sort of suck the life out of you,
Right.
There's an endless list of requests. They never ask you how you are. Ever. You know these people, right? They go right to your ass. There's no how are things going, or how's the family? It's just sort of I need.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between Melody Hobson calling Oprah Winfrey and Melody Johnson calling Oprah. I bet you Oprah Melody Johnson.
She was a superstar in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, these are people I write her letters.
Right.
Saying I'm such a fan, or not cheesy, but just you said this and it actually made a difference in my life, or that sort of thing, and not wanting anything, just expressing my admiration and appreciation. Not, but I don't want to say that name in a way that's inappropriate. It's just there's so much respect there that I have for her, and I thought she's led a way for people like me. Michelle was led, and they've been wonderful beacons of light. I mean, literally, but I also recognize they're real people with real struggles and lots of stress, lots of pulls on them, and I just never wanted to be an additional version of that.
We had a shooting in a major hospital in Dallas, and I wrote the CEO and the president of the hospital a letter of condolence and telling him how I was praying for the hospital during this time. I didn't even know him. I said, praying for the hospital during this time. I know that I lead people who are depressed and brokenhearted. And he responded, he wrote back, just being kind to somebody in need. He didn't know who I was, but just to show compassion. Sometimes you don't have to have a relationship to start a relationship at a moment of pain simply by being thoughtful, being humanistic, and being caring.
I think
Very powerful.
cherished.
Yeah.
They pack a punch. People remember, if you get a stack of mail, no one opens the bill first. If there is a personally addressed letter to you, you will 100% open that letter first, and you will remember it. So I tell our team that all the time. I'm like, handwritten notes go a long way, a long way.
Except when you write like me. I was my wife to write my letter. And it's like calligraphy. When we come to court, we're running out of time. It's very, very important. How do we get this? Just average, ordinary, small business, regular, everyday, black, brown, and white people. How do we get through this?
It's going to require us to be really resourceful and being really honest. It's going to be challenging. This is going to be a lot for some of us. And I think that we will have to, and this is my thing I'm saying on every call and every meeting, we are going to have to together. Your neighbor is going to need you, and you will have to help. I think that we have to understand that's why we were put here. It may mean that we don't get to do everything we want to do, but this is a time where we have to shore up each other for the sake of our community. And I hope that what comes out of it is a stronger version of our own communities. That could be the silver lining that gets created, that we become formidable. Because in times of great stress, that's what we have been. When you look at the other difficult times we've had as people of color, as women, as whatever you want to call it, during economic strife, whatever it might be, there are times that becomes a moment of truth that creates so much resilience and so much greatness. Some of our greatest people, leaders, moments have come out of the most difficult circumstances. And that's what I hold out to. The only way we're going to get together is we have to stick together. That's it. If you call me, TD Jakes, I am going to be there to the best of my ability. Because if you say you need me, I believe you do, and I would hope you would do the same for me. When I told you, I said, I needed you. I needed your soul and presence today, which I was meant to be here so that you could help me. And that's what this conversation is going to be.
FDIC regulations, big banks doing business. Is that money safe?
Yes, your money is safe. I'm on the board of JP Morgan. We are more than capitalized. I tell you, you are not. Your money is insured, and you're not having to worry about anything like bank failings or run on the bank. The banks actually reported earnings yesterday, and they have been today actually. The earnings have been very strong. So that you can put off to the side.
What about
The local banks are also insured.
what about CDFI?
They are insured. So you are not, that is not something for you to worry about. Your money is safe. Unless you have not insured, you're $30 million in bank. But everyday Americans, your money is insured by the U.S. government. And the way it's going to tell you one thing what happens when a bank fails, just so you know. We have bank failures regularly in our society. You remember Silicon Valley Bank a few years ago and First Republic? When they fail, the FDIC insurance is paid for by all of the other banks. So it's a self-sustaining mechanism. And I have to tell you, the U.S. government, whenever it's been a moment of truth, there I actually do believe Janet Yellen, if you go back to Hank Paulson, the secretaries of Treasury, when we've had these bad moments, they have come together to make sure the banking system always stays intact, because that is the actual foundation of the American capitalist system. The banks cannot fail. That is not something you should worry about. I assure you.
They thought I was joking when I brought up CDFIs, but community development financial institutions have more standards for you to be able to get homes, to get houses, and to get property. And it's very important to us that we understand that they survive. Secondly, we started out with, if I remember correctly, about 175 national banking institutions. Now we're down to about 33 to 35.
We've always had way more than the rest of the world. So just so you know, when you go to the rest of the world, the UK, all sorts of countries, they have very few banks. America had a lot more because we had banking regulations that did not allow interstate banking. So you couldn't bank customers in another state without setting up a completely separate entity. Those rules changed years ago, which allowed for national banks, which are the norm in Canada, or the norm in the UK, etc. So it made it actually more profitable and much less regulation. It was a good decision. And so we have fewer banks, but don't take that as a negative, because the whole time banking fees have come down. What you get charged to bank in America has steadily declined over the same amount of times that banks have consolidated.
So the numbers have gone down. You say don't take that as a bad sign. But how do we keep 33 from hemorrhaging down to 3?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's likely. But the other thing is that I just want to make a point about CDS. They are supported by the big banks, just so you know that.
Right.
So they are not sort of in an island out there by themselves.
I realize.
And so I don't see a scenario where it goes to 3. But the big guys are big. JP Morgan, Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. They're very big. JP Morgan is the biggest bank in America, the 8th largest bank in the world. The 7 largest banks in front of us are all Chinese. Just to give you a context.
When you say that, Rosie,
But those Chinese banks don't do business in America.
you're making it hard on me. How are we going to do that when banks interact with each other every day? Based on your stock markets and our stock markets, they engage in business every day. Most of the time, we're not even watching the ticker tape flowing at the bottom of the thing to know how to get in the game. So it's almost like it's a foreign language to us. And yet currency has no boundary. Okay? Currency is money in motion. is flowing, it's moving. So the day that putting money in hands and bearing them in the backyard like your grandmother did is over and foolish and unwise. And even putting it in a banking account, by the time you deduct the low interest rate from the taxation of the capital that you made on the money, you might be losing money. You might be better to put it in a can. Am I right so far?
Okay, well, I never like it because just FYI, most people forget where the can is, especially as they age. FYI, my mom's can was the Bible, the big white Bible on the table had 20s in it, things like that. When we started to get really scarce, we were all shaking out the Bible to see if we could find any money in it. But I'm not recommending that. You want your money if you're saving in a traditional savings account to protect it. That's very, very important. When it comes to investing, though, the one thing I tell, especially our community, because this is new to us, why? You don't learn about investing in school in America. You can take wood shop or auto in a high school in America today and not a class on investing, which always leads me to ask audiences the same question. Who whittles in their spare time? Who is cleaning their own carburetor? No one, right? But you can take those classes and not take the investment class that is actually essential for the future of yourself and your family. So what can you do? I tell people to start with a very simple thing. I'm begging you to read the newspaper every day. Begging you. And in the middle, there's a business section. And even if it was bad and unfamiliar, just read it to familiarize yourself over time. You start with words, you start reading about even local companies, it starts to give you some comfort. We go to the first page and the back. So we do the headlines on the first page and sports. That's generally what we do. I'm just asking you to spend a little time in the middle, as you spend a little time on the business page, and it's, it's not a lot. It'll start to acclimate you to the language of money that will ultimately make you more comfortable. You see a word, you might look it up. You see a company, you say, what does it do? And over time, I'm not saying a month, I'm not saying 3 months, but over time, you start to get more and more comfortable. My mom, last thing about my mother had dementia. She died when she was 85 years old, about 11 years ago. She had me when she was much older. My mom, until she died, had my sister reading her the Wall Street Journal and Cranes. Even when she couldn't stand anymore, it was out of habits. My mother, who didn't graduate from college, who had 6 kids, had gone through all the things, but she started because of me. I would say just read a little bit, and then a little more. And when my mother was blind because of diabetes, my sister read the Wall Street Journal and Cranes to my mother. And she learned when she was in her elderly years, which tells me anyone can learn.
2 quick questions. I'm going to read the clothes at least 3 times. Okay. In my mind, we have 2 children. Okay. Ariel and Everest. And you kind of mommy over both. For Ariel, define to the audience what Ariel's mission is, what it's about, and what your dream is for Ariel. And then tell us what your dream is for Everest.
We want to make money for people so they can live better lives. They can have a life of their dreams. They can send their kids to college. They can start a business if they want. They can buy that house. If it's an institution that the pension fund is making the money for the pensioners, if it's an endowment or foundation that they can give away more money or do whatever it is that they do. We want to help people have better lives financially. That's our job. And we do that by investing in the stock market, and then we also buy private companies as well in our private equity business.
How many people on staff?
140 people. We have offices in Chicago, which is our headquarters. We have a big office in New York, and then I have an office also in San Francisco.
How do you manage that many people by how's your corporate interest?
They have senior people that run departments. So we have a general counsel who's also chief administrative officer. She's responsible for operations and technology. We have Ron, who runs Aerial Alternatives, who's responsible for our private equity business. We have John Rogers, who founded the firm, who's responsible for all investing. the investment people report down, and we are co-CEOs, co-leaders, which I don't know why more people don't do. He runs everything related to investing, and I run everything related to the firm. And we have very separate responsibilities, but we engage and communicate throughout the day on our individual areas, which allows us to do more individually.
So, let's because, well, several things. What made you pick them? Because most of us are victims of dying people.
Yeah, so you can't hire friends and family. And you just, you gotta start with that one. It's like, it's really because you just won't do the right thing. I assure you that when you have, my husband says to me, obviously he made movies, and he says, Melody, it's not called friends business. It's called shit business. And he always says to me, Melody, it's not Ariel.org. It's Ariel.com. He's like, you are not a nonprofit. You are not, you are a business. And when you have to be a business, you have to make some difficult decisions sometimes. I think that becomes very hard with a friend. You got to take someone's bonus down. You're like, but their family is so close, or it's my cousin. No, it's easier if we start with professionals. We understand that we are working together and we are showing up for each other. I tell our team, I work for you and I work for our clients, and you work for our clients and you work for me and each other. That is super important. So how we find people, the one thing I think people underestimate, it's so important, and I can't believe that they don't do it. They don't check references. I mean, it is so big. You can't give me enough references. You give me references, I'm like, now I got 5 more. Why? Because you get insights from people, and if you would just check some people's references, you find out, oh, he stole at the last company. Or, this is not a trustworthy person that you want to put in front of clients. Or if you take them to a cocktail party, they're going to drink too much. It would be good to know that before they're representing you in front of a client that gives you $1 million. These are the kind of things I want to know. And you get insights from people, not digging and asking, but just tell me what they're like. Tell me what areas of development they might have. If I were managing them, what advice would you give me? Would you hire again? The person who just says nothing is telling you a lot too. A lot. And I think we get wishful thinking, we want to hear what we want to hear, but checking the references is huge. And that's when you find people. But I make mistakes too, trust me. Lots of mistakes.
Jesus did. He had
You said it right.
When you think about that, and the person has to realize that they are not their name, but in the name of your company or your name, to represent the brand and the vision. And when you look, you have to ask yourself, is this what I want my company to look like when I go into Microsoft's office? Do I want them to look like, dress like, smell like, act like, talk like this person is standing in front of me? And full representation of that, then that's the first hand that you might have a problem. And second hand is you can only have so long. So if we got a 6-month clause in the contract that says, after 6 months before this finalizes and it's on a trial basis for 6 months, it also gives you room enough to catch not active. And if you hang around them long enough, they're going to stop acting.
This is my favorite piece of advice someone gave me.
Okay.
We both got there.
Okay.
I got a friend Dallas. They said the interview is someone's best behavior. They are literally, they are saying everything we want to hear. If anything bugs you in the interview, magnify it 1,000 times. So anything that stays with you, it's like, that bugs me, it's going to be really bad. So just to say the interview, best behavior, what stuck with you that you had doubts about? And when you can't decide, the answer is no.
The last question, you gotta go, I gotta go, they gotta go. What do you prefer? And what do you want? Just like you sit here and talk about what you your mother said that stuck to you, what do you want to stick to her?
I'm so emotional about my kid. You know, I know we all feel this way. It's like, how can you love a person more, right? It is just, my heart is ripped by what I want for her. And it is so simple. I want her to be happy. I can't make her happy, but I want to create conditions in which she can live in peace with herself and be good with herself, which is what my mother always wanted for me. She's like, I want you to be at peace. She that to me all the time because she saw anxiety in me. And I want Everest to care about the world. She has everything. But that doesn't mean she won't struggle. It doesn't mean she won't suffer. But I do want her to understand she was born and won the birth lottery. 2 parents, great resources, best things money can buy. Bilingual in Chinese that you go on and on. You don't get to have all that and not owe society a lot back. And I really want to
Ladies and gentlemen, Melanie Hudson.
Watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Thank you so much for joining us for ILS 2025. At this time, we're asking that all standing conversation be moved to the expo and to the foyer as we're now preparing for evening sessions.